Hello and welcome to the 2020 CIO webinar, The Hidden Opportunity of Security in the Public Cloud. My name is Nikki Gale with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. I have a few administrative details to share with you, and then I will turn things over to our esteemed speakers. First, we would like to thank Hewlett Packard Enterprise for their partnership with today's event. They've been a wonderful thought leadership partner to Argyle and are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. So thank you again to Hewlett Packard Enterprise. We appreciate you joining us today. We welcome you to stay connected during today's event. For those of you who are active tweeters, please use the hashtag ArgyleCIO. You can also follow us on Twitter at ArgyleExecForum and be sure to join our LinkedIn group, Chief Information Officer, CIO Forum. I also want to take a moment to touch on our content neutrality policy, which we've curated based on the feedback we've received over the years from our members. Argyle is very proud and protective of this policy as it reflects our commitment to ensure the neutrality and overall value of the content presented at our events. We've worked closely with our speaking faculty to ensure that you receive a set of balanced and neutral viewpoints during today's session, and we appreciate our members' support of this policy. We have an upcoming CIO-CISO Leadership Forum that may be of interest to you on March 18th and March 19th in San Francisco, and May 5th and May 6th in New York. Finally, and most importantly, please submit any and all questions that come up during today's event into the Q&A section of the interface. Following the panel discussion, we have set aside time for our speakers to weigh in on those questions. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce Mark Gilmore, HPE Global Cloud Security Evangelist at Hewlett Packard Enterprise. We are pleased to have Mark with us to deliver some opening remarks. Welcome, Mark. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. This is Mark Gilmore. So your first question probably is, what's a global cloud security evangelist? So he's the guy that came into the cloud about 6 years ago, and after 20 years of security, tried to figure out early on how to make the cloud as secure as possible for companies like yourself. So 6 years later, I'm now the guy that has seen over 100 different implementations at major Fortune 500 companies, and I've seen some patterns along the way, and so now I get to evangelize about them, which is an exciting prospect, right? So the purpose, or what we'll walk through today, is we're going to go in at the 100,000 foot level and talk a little bit about a digital journey, okay? And how HPE Point Next Services sees the digital journey. And then we're going to go down to the 10,000 foot level. We're going to say, okay, what are we seeing out there from a security perspective in the industry, right? What are the patterns that are bubbling up, right? So from there, we're going to talk a little bit about what that hidden opportunity is, and then we're going to go into our panel discussion and hopefully get some great questions out of you guys as well. So with that, we can start the presentation. Now, usually this has builds in it, so I'll be talking to each slide without the builds, but I think it will be great for you anyway. So the first piece we're going to talk about is how do we envision the digital journey, okay? So the digital journey, in our minds, has three major components to it. First of all, it's data-driven. And when I first read this, I didn't even know what a zettabyte was, and so I had to do the lookup, right? And according to this, globally, by 2025, we're going to have 175 zettabytes. And for all you that are going on Google right now and saying define zettabyte, I was there with you. So a zettabyte is essentially 1 billion petabytes. So globally, that's how much information is going to be swimming around in just a few years, right? And that's a massive increase, 61% from now. So what's the impact of that? So the impact of that, so I have a nephew, and he goes to MIT, and he's doing his PhD, And right now he's doing his PhD on the ethics of AI. And, you know, I've thought about that, and I didn't even, you know, I always see technology as technology, but it's true. There's going to be a major impact of managing this data over time, and there's going to be ethical consequences, right? So, so ethics and privacy and AI are all going to be, you know, this massive thing that we get into, right? So that's why we see the world as data-driven. And by the way, 70% of that data is never going to touch the four walls of a data center, right? That's going to reside on your cell phones and on all the pieces of other equipment out there that are generating data, right? So really kind of an amazing place to be right now from a data perspective. The next place that we see a lot of a part of that digital journey being is on the edge, right? And we see two portions of that edge, right? We see a human side and we see a physical side. So the human side is me on my cell phone doing everything I do every day, right? And the physical side is all the smart home stuff that you've got at your house, all the IoT that exists out there in cars and in equipment and in manufacturing facilities, all those pieces generating data. And it's those two pieces that are coming together that are going to create the digital edge. Thus, another piece of this is edge-driven, right? So now think about this, right? From your digital journey point of view, things are going to be data-driven and they're going to be edge-centric, right? So all that needs context when it comes together, and that's going to reveal certain information to you over time, right? So exciting stuff at the end of the day, right? And the third major component of that is everything's going to be cloud-enabled, right? That's going to be where our opportunity for innovation is going to live. That's where our containerization is. That's where our DevOps is. That's where that's where everything that we do now becomes a service to us and is easily accessible and gives us the opportunity to fail fast and try again and get better at whatever we do, right? So that's sort of our three main tenets of the world, okay? So we talked about that as part of the digital journey. So we have something here called a digital journey map, right? And so on the left-hand side, where we were talking about edge-centric, we're talking about where that human behavior comes in, where we're redefining experiences for that end user to come in and be a part of that digital journey with us, where we have insight and control from an IoT perspective, where we have more visibility than we ever had, and coming together to create context to make that experience extraordinary. Then on the right side, we've got all that cloud-enabled world happening, right? Which is, how are you guys going to take your existing IT systems, all that technical debt that exists out there, and how are you going to get it up to snuff so that you can take advantage of all these great things happening in your particular industry, right? And so part of that is going to be accelerating innovation. And for those of you looking at that, you're probably thinking about the DevOps mentality and that sort of thing. And that's exactly what it is, right? Is how do we get to do whatever we do every day, test new things out in an easy way that doesn't require, 12 weeks to get a database in order to try something out, right? Everything's at our fingertips. We try it quickly. It either fails or it's successful, and we go on from there, right? And this has real implications, right? It obviously has a security implication, and that's on the data-driven side, right? So that's that trust portion. That's really foundational to everything to do it. Everything that we're going to do. What's trust look like on devices? What's trust look like with our partnerships? What's trust look like, in every component of this hugely complex thing that we're walking into? And then now that we've got some of this stuff figured out from an intelligence perspective, what do we actually do with that data, right? And so finally, that's going to create an operating model that's unlike anything that we've had today, where suddenly IT is that value creator. That's what we're going for, right? And this sort of one-stop picture is how we look at it at the end of the day. And you can take this picture at any point, and you can map your own goals out there and get a lot of answers through just sort of using your brain around this one thought process. Because for us, this is a 100,000-foot view of the world to come. So now let's go down to the 10,000-foot level, as I said before, right? That was 100,000 feet, everybody feeling like they're gasping for oxygen. Okay, so now that we know what the world's going to look like, let's talk about some of the real things that are happening today from a security perspective, right? So fundamentally, there's over half the organizations out there, over half the people on this phone right now, believe that there's a problematic shortage of security people out there, right? That's a pretty big deal. And think about everything we were just talking about. If that's the problem, how do we get to that digital journey? So we've got these major hurdles to overcome. First of all, as people, right? But we've got real ways of managing that. But we're going to walk through the hurdles first, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how to manage that kind of stuff. So we don't have enough security people to begin with. So that means that the people with any kind of skill are the ones that are being overtaxed, right? And they're the ones that are working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to just keep up. And then we have the business side saying, hey, we'd really love to move to the cloud. So suddenly your threat landscape is expanding, right? So not only do you have to take care of what you have to take care of right here, you've got to take care of it in this new area where maybe you don't have a ton of expertise, and yet you have to still make sure that the business is being served. I don't know if anybody else just got a little nauseous in that part of the conversation, but I know I did, right? So as security people, we're not known for being super fast about stuff, right? Why is that? We're risk-based people. We don't change easily, right? You really have to prove that there isn't a risk involved in order to make that change. And therefore, as a culture, we tend to change slowly, right? And then at the same time, and I don't even think about these people as much, all the people that are attacking us every day are doing it more and more, and they're getting more and more complex in the ways they do it. And I don't think about that as much because I'm trying to worry about the cleanliness of my own room versus the people that are trying to break down the door, right? And so cyber threats are growing, and that's an issue. And back to that idea about security culture being slow to change. Automation is a real and proven exercise that is hard for organizations to take on in a way that is relevant for you, right? So how do you get your hands around automation? What does it mean to you as an organization? Is that just an alert, or is that actually shutting down an unencrypted S3 bucket, as an example, right? So it could be anywhere in between that, right? And then DevOps as a principle, while completely mature out there, is something that is being slow to mature within organizations, right? And all that creates this kind of web of challenges from a security perspective that make it hard for us to get to where we want to be, right? So this is how we solve it slide. This isn't a silver bullet. It's not a silver bullet at all. It is one lens into something that probably has multiple answers. Sorry. So when you move out to the public cloud for a lot of organizations, hopefully the first thing is they step back to a capability level, right? They're no longer thinking about necessarily how their deep packet inspection is going to work within the cloud. They're taking a step back to the capability level to figure out, okay, what capabilities do I need to satisfy to be secure in the cloud, right? And when you get that step, that's a step that you can't normally take within the enterprise because you're too busy doing everything I was talking about before, and you're understaffed, right? So the thought is that this is a moment for you to be able to take a step back and do things from a security perspective and engage in techniques that are modern techniques that will allow you to run a secure environment, right? So the first one we're going to talk briefly about is the protection of data, right? Protection of data that's just in the cloud especially, that's just a service. Well, because that's just a service out there and we no longer necessarily need these honking HSMs in our on-prem environment to be able to manage keys, right? Suddenly the world of encryption is much closer to us and it's easier to take advantage of, right? So any data out there we can actually encrypt, right? So what the cloud has brought to us, right, in the great world of competition, is that there are now a lot of encryption vendors out there that are doing encryption as a service. So no longer do you need to worry about your encryption in the cloud and then what your encryption, if you have any at all, looks like on-prem. You can take advantage of a service and bring it both on-prem and in the cloud, right? So we're maturing the protection of data in the cloud, right? And then we're, from an identity and access management control perspective, this is something that's close to my heart in the worst way possible. So from an identity and access management perspective, I was, before I got into the public cloud arena, I was an identity and access management guy, right? And I went from organization to organization and watched people not fix their very basic problems, right? But once again, moving to the cloud is the opportunity to get a handle on your identity and access management stuff. Because if you don't, that has much larger implications in the public cloud than it is just within the four walls of your particular data center, right? So getting your hands and maturing what your identity and access management looks like from a cleanliness perspective, from a completeness perspective, is a big deal that you can mature in the cloud, right? So then again, and then leveraging automation, I put realistically here, right? Realistically, automation is not meant to be, the one-stop silver bullet, one-stop shop that you need, right? But automation is something that actually is very possible for every organization, and the easiest place that can happen is out in the public cloud. So what I would do is put your feet in the pool, get automation running in the cloud, see what it feels like, and then think about what that means on-prem, right? So your processes are a different thing. This isn't technology necessarily, right? But process optimization it's a DevOps principle. It's a place we need to step back from our daily work and understand that the daily work that we do every day is not necessarily right, and we should look at it with a scientific mind and see if we can improve it. So what's that look like from a change management perspective? What percentage of your changes are standard changes versus ad hoc changes, right? If you're below 60% on your standard changes, then you're not doing well from a change management perspective, and that needs to be actively looked at. What's patch management look like? What's image management look like? All these processes that exist out there that are potentially diabolical in the cloud if you don't do it right. So take those new processes and explore what they mean in the cloud, and then look at what that new processes looks like, and ask yourself, does that work on-prem? So you guys can see what I'm getting to from a hidden opportunity perspective. Immutable infrastructures are things that people talk about in sci-fi books, but they're very possible out on in a cloud-native environment when you're building from the ground up. It may not be possible for your client-server apps or your ERP systems right now today, but if you get into the mindset of what immutability can look like for your organization, it's a real possibility that slowly you can diminish your technical debt over time by having these infrastructures that exist, that if a change happens anywhere within the infrastructure portion, you know about it immediately and you just set it back to normal, right? So that stops any garbage happening from an attack perspective, because you already know what the golden infrastructure looks like at that point, right? So that's something that's easily done in the cloud, right? How easily done is it within your enterprise? And finally, continuous compliance is a piece that has been brought up again and again in the cloud as a sort of great new way to look at the control plane of the cloud service provider, right? So if something is, if an S3 bucket, again, is brought up unencrypted, you have a compliance checking system that says, hey, that bucket is unencrypted, shut it down, and you get a level of control from a compliance perspective that's great for all that stuff that exists in your cloud that is not in an immutable state, right? So this is sort of the other end of immutability, which is I've got a lot of stuff I've got to watch. I don't know what necessarily is, and so therefore I need to have this compliance checker in place, right? So what's the hidden opportunity? The cloud is this place where you can step back again to the capability level and understand what better security looks like, and you can mature yourself in that security, and then start to engage your teams to bring back the stuff that's working really well back on-prem, therefore increasing your enterprise security posture, raising the bar, and making it and making yourself available for that digital journey we were talking about in the beginning. So I'm bringing us back to that digital journey again. And if you look at this, and I don't think you can see my pointer here, but you see the trust area in the middle at the bottom, right? And you see the modernize and move to the right at the bottom. These two pieces are table stakes to whatever you want to do in the entire digital journey. If you can't get this right, you can't take advantage of anything else. So my request to you is to see the priority in getting to that place and enjoy all the security opportunity that you have in front of you. So with that, I will jump to the next slide because we're going to engage our incredible esteemed panelists in a second. Hold up. Where we are. I think you guys just took it over. Okay, great. All right, so again, we've got Partha Chakraborty, who's the Director of Infrastructure and Cloud Security at Bank of Montreal. Thank you very much for joining us, Partha. We've got Jason Cherry, who's the Director of Technology at Lexington Medical Center. And we've got Parveen Malik, who's VP of Corporate Information Security Global at State Street Corporation. So in that order, gentlemen, please introduce yourself. Partha?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mark. As you mentioned, currently I am with Bank of Montreal. I am leading the network and cloud security. Moreover, 20 plus years in Wall Street, prior roles in leadership roles at JP Morgan, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and also worked in Guardian Life Insurance. And very excited to be part of this panel and to participate in the discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, Partha. Jason?
Hello, I'm Jason Cherry. I am the Director of Information Technology at Lexington Medical Center, as Mark mentioned. I have over 15 years in healthcare experience, and prior to that, I worked in financial services.
Terrific. Is Parveen with us yet? Don't think so. Parveen, you there? Okay, so it looks like Parveen was running a little bit late. Maybe he'll be able to join us later. So, gentlemen, that leaves you. You're on the chopping block, I'm afraid. So we're going to start with a few questions, right? And then we're going to open it up to the rest of the gang on the phone. So, Partha, how do you address the scarcity of resources that we were just talking about within the security industry? What's that look like for you?
Yeah, that's actually something which is close to my heart and all the cyber professional in the leadership role, right? So We always have seen that there are racks open in the market for us, but at the same time, we are struggling to fill up those racks, be it through our HR partners or even when we extend to the third-party recruiting agencies as well. So far, I will tell my personal experience, right? Wherever I went in and I filled up my leadership role, most of the time, LinkedIn was my source of resourcing, and where I was able to get and connected at the same time when my HR partners or even extended recruiting agencies which are partnering with my companies could not get. So for me, networking is the key, where at least for a leadership roles, I mean, you definitely get most of the candidates through your networks. The other avenues are the conferences, right? The RSAs and all other conferences happening. One channel is that these are a great venue for exchanging ideas, learning new concepts, and at the same time build networking. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times those conferences turned into meaningful opportunities at many places I have seen in the past. I mean, in some companies I worked in the past, leadership used to openly tell, I'm going to RSA, not only for learning something or even presenting, but my main purpose is hunting, right? I'm looking for the resources to socialize what we do and see if there is an interest and get the resources. So this kind of conferences and, dinners and all, I mean, which are like an extended networking avenue, also helps getting, the senior level roles to fill in, right? I mean, you make the connections. And other than that, I mean, the third avenue, which I personally follow, is that I'm connected with academia, right? I sit in Rutgers Cyber Board. I sit in New Jersey Institute of Technology's board. So where I find is that, I mean, aside from connecting with the teachers and the professors in those universities, there is a pool of students currently doing projects, undergrad or even masters. They're always connected with you. Now, those students might not be very well versed in all the latest and greatest cybersecurity technologies, but what they have is intelligence, hard work, passion, dedication, and willingness to prove themselves, right? That's all matters for any profession. Cyber is not an exception. There are a lot of analyst roles and a little bit of junior level roles where you need volume and you need a smart and dedicated person. So I try to look at those avenues with my connections in academia when we need to fill up analyst level roles. And at times, I also do extend the opportunity for the right person who might not have the right cyber background, but willing to, take part and start a career in cyber. And we try to bring them in. So these are basically three avenues I look at beyond the traditional ones of recruiting agencies and your HR partners.
That's terrific, Partha. Thank you very much. So do you find it as hard to find cloud security folks as it is normal enterprise security folks?
It is, right? And let me tell you this thing, like cloud becoming sort of a kind of like if you look into all the companies right now, there is hardly any company which is telling that I'm not opening the door to cloud, right? It is sort of becoming like a de facto or even like a commodity right now. I'm going to cloud, knowingly or even unknowingly. I mean, there are a lot of applications we're using in SaaS. Same with the skill set. People want to go into cloud, right? Those AWS certifications or Azure certifications are becoming so popular, even college students. I mean, I know a lot of them are doing those certifications. So there is a bit of cloud knowledge there. Now, the right expertise, is it there? We struggle when we try to look for the right candidate. When you go into the interview with the depth of that particular technology, we might not find, because people giving those certification exams are getting the certification. Getting certifications and actually having the experience of knowing something really good are two different things. So that's why, like, I personally don't pay too much attention to those list of certifications, because list of certifications are a very theoretical concept to pass an exam. The motivation and the objective is completely different than the real world scenario of solving a problem, right? So to answer your question, yes, it is difficult to find. At the same time, when we ask for cloud security, I don't see a shortage of resume who are applying. In other words, we do get candidates, but finding the right candidate at time is a struggle. So out of which, as I said, right, if we don't find exact skills or the right experience, We look at the aptitude. Eventually, whatever we do is not a rocket science. Somebody having the right level of intelligence and aptitude and the overall passion, dedication, and the thirst for knowledge and learning and problem solving can do the work. So at times we do a little compromise on the experience level, but not on the overall capability level, right? Experience is only one chunk of the pie, but you have to look at the other aspects of a candidate which can eventually become the best fit for the role going forward.
Terrific. Terrific. Thank you very much, Partha. Parveen, have you joined the call? Okay. I see him there, but Parveen, when you get the chance, chime in. So Jason, I'm going to change the question up now. What are some of the insider threats that are top of mind for you at your organization? This should be interesting from a healthcare perspective.
There's a couple different avenues that we really have to look at as far as insider threats, both from employees and then from a healthcare perspective. You think about patients and their families visiting. I know it's probably not the best practice that those are viewed as threats, but more and more patients and families and their family members come in with devices that want to connect to our wireless network while they're here, and that's a patient experience service that we provide, but we have to secure that wireless connectivity for them, and we can't rely that they've done everything to secure their own devices.
Sure.
More and more of our medical devices are now becoming wireless as more of that moves towards an IoT. So those are also have started to become more of a larger attack vector. There's older operating systems on there. It's not as easy to patch those things. So that's a big one. And then lastly, the biggest insider threat, no matter what, is phishing through email. No matter how hard we try, it still seems to happen.
Sure. Jason, that's a great answer. Terrifying, but a great answer. Partha, did you hear the question or should I repeat it?
No, I agree with Jason, right? These are definitely the biggest vectors we do see. Another thing I would like to mention, right? We are all in technology. We deal with a lot of smart people. And at times it surprises me when I find, we're dealing with so many smart people, but there are some basic things where people are not fully aware of. In many places I worked in the past, we found an employee, right, just before, leaving the organization, like resigned for a better opportunity, whatever it is, working in a 2-week kind of a notice period, or even senior level people, right, or just before leaving, trying to send some document. And knowing that person for years, we know that probably there's no malicious intent, right? The intent is not to exfiltrate data or company secret or something. But what happens is that they sometimes fail to differentiate, right, what is the right information to send out and what is not. At times, those technical people mostly think that, oh, that's my work, my design. Okay, it has no IP information in it, right? No IP address or no even, my stock or revenue or my sales target or even my marketing plan. There's nothing in it. So what's wrong in sending this document? So I send it to Gmail, right? Whereas, obviously, you have the corporate controls like DLP and all. You get flagged, and those are the guys who designed those solutions. They should be knowing it better. But what I feel is that people can be very smart in the technology. They implemented those solutions, but there is a gap in interpretation of what is allowed and what is not allowed, right? If I am sending an overall architecture without naming the product or without naming the IP address and all, just before I leave, is it allowed or not? If I was part of a patent which I submitted for the organization, and right before leaving, if I am sending it to my Gmail, is it allowed or not? So sometimes the intent I find that is not malicious, but the act being done falls within that not allowed category, right? So that is also pretty common among the smart technical people within even cyber organization I found in many companies. So that's one thing we basically probably need to handle by more training and awareness, and just to spread the message that there is absolutely something is right and something is wrong. Nothing is left for interpretation that I don't think this is good or there is nothing wrong in doing it, right? That puts the employee or even the organization at risk and trouble at times. And other than that, the other vector which I feel, again, an insider and unintentional, like unintentional human error, configuration gap, not closing that particular thing, not knowingly opening up the hole in the overall environment, which puts the organization at risk. So these are like the other two things I would add on top of what Jason mentioned, like all those valid phishing and all those things. We all face it day in and day out.
Sure, yeah, I think the industry statistic is something like 76% of all insider threats are either are accidental, right? So it's the stuff you're not expecting, right? That's going to reveal real risk for your organization. Parveen, are you with us yet?
Yes, I'm with you. Sorry for the late joining, but yes.
That's right. Parveen, I introduced you earlier, but just give everybody the briefest notion of who you are.
So my name is Parveen Malik. I am working with the State Street from last 5 years as a VP and managing some of the corporate information security stuff.
Thank you. Okay, so Parveen, so I don't know if you heard the question before, but anything you want to add to some of the insider threats you're seeing, or shall I continue to the next question?
So insider threat is actually one of the biggest issue what we face in today's environment. It is not that the people knowingly doing it, but a lot of unintentional things happen. So I think that as just now that the Partha mentioned it, that means people are not aware what is the information they can take out from the organization and what the information they have to keep with the organization, which is kind of a DLP controls. They say, yeah, means personally say, means I do a lot of other stuff like building the architecture and others, even for my own knowledge while working in the organization. So the moment I build these things, it is the organization property and I have to know why to take it out. If I need to take it out anything from the organization, I should take the permission from the either from my senior management or either from the security people. So which people doesn't do. They thought that no, this is not organizational stuff because it is I develop it. So that is the same case as I mentioned. But again, other thing is that the training, telling that people that what is right and what is the wrong, and continuously telling, that is most important because the human nature is there. If he did not listen for the 90 days, he is going to forward it. So that happens with the most of the people. So it is a continuous push to them that yes, you can't do this, you can do this, and continuous training that is very much necessary to stop that either the phishing or either inside threats other than the technology. So I think that is what I like to add here.
All right. Thank you, Parveen. Great. I'm glad to have you here. So here's one more question, guys, and if we have time, we'll have another question. But if security is difficult for you now, how are you going to get down the road of that digital journey we were talking about in the beginning? And the first part of that I'm going to send to you, Partha, and then Jason, you were interested in that as well.
Sure. I mean, first of all, I do apologize, right? It looks like there are a couple of airplanes being routed above our area. I live close to Newark Airport, so sometimes it happens. Some terminals are closed, so they do that. So there is a little bit of background noise. I do apologize for that. But if you cannot hear me out and want me to repeat, so please let me know.
You're clear.
So the first thing is that it's a great question, right? Security is tough right now, right? And why we do it? Why are we, optimistic about future? Two reasons for me, right? Number one, security is hard for us right now to ensure, and there are so many breaches happening, starting from the big scale, nation state actors to even script kidders, right? Those are happening. And because of that, these are in news everywhere, right? Security is a boardroom topic, right? I have been in many presentations where I have seen like CISOs are briefing board, and the feedback we get from them is that, right, when they're coming back from the board, I mean, there is an enormous amount of security awareness, even in the board these days, right? People are asking, are we protected? What do you need to protect us? So that helps us even to be getting ready for the future. The reason being the amount of awareness we already spread in security generates more interest among the young stars and the new population who will be joining the industry. Like the best example is that 10 years from now, right, how many institutions had cybersecurity specialized programs being offered in United States universities? If you look at the stat 10 years back and right now, way too many universities, even like very known and popular universities, are offering master's program, even PhD programs in cybersecurity. So the focus is there, the awareness is there, the interest is there. People are seeing that there is a future in this field. So that's why like more and more people are signing up. So as we are moving forward, our big question is that, are we going to face the shortage of cybersecurity skills? The kind of fight we have right now, that will probably continue, but it will not get worse. The reason being supply and demand. As demand is increasing, supply is also increasing based by the fact that awareness is increasing, and institutions and academia is also, taking part to combat that skill shortage challenge. So more volume is also coming and joining the cyber industry. That's one thing. The second thing is, my favorite part is technology advancements and artificial intelligence, right? As it is being used by bad and good, you initially in your introductory presentation, you talked about a PhD candidate, right, doing the ethics on AI. So that will be a very good topic, right? Because the AI can be used by the bad actors and the good actors. But the good part is that as it is getting more and more complicated, we are adding tons of controls. And humanly, those controls and maintaining those controls are not possible to have the right level of agility in response. And these artificial intelligence tools and the way the industry is maturing, right, makes me feel very optimistic about we will have a better control combating those, bad actors in future. So if I can summarize, two factors. Awareness is driving the fact that more and more, supply is coming in the field of cybersecurity. More people are joining. So there is never going to be a shortage of skills, right? If I look at shortage of relevant skill or experience might be there, but there will be no shortage of people coming and joining the industry. And the second thing is that technological advantages driven by AI, big data, machine learning will also, be very helpful and help us to combat the threats in future.
Terrific. Thank you, Partha. Jason, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think healthcare is always a little bit behind on everything, so that in a way helps us with the digital transformation journeys is that we can learn from other industries that went before us. I think financial services has always kind of been on the front of a lot of these things, so we can learn from their best practices. The other thing that's nice about healthcare is we've got a really easy rallying cry for everybody, no matter where they are in healthcare IT, is that we have to protect our patients' data. So it's not even a question of whether or not we have to do security, but how are we going to secure that data? How are we going to keep that safe? And then as you start marching towards more of the cloud, it makes you look at your processes to make sure that they're consistent and repeatable so that you can start moving towards that automation. And then that also helps your team get the reps. So when you have a security event that you need to respond to quickly, there's no confusion about who's doing what. Everybody kind of knows their part. And then as you get to some more of the cloud vendors, being able to leverage the tools and the AI that Partha mentioned, those almost become by extension, I don't want to say free, but kind of outsourced FTEs for your team in a way that you are included with the cost that you're already paying for those cloud services. So we're kind of crawling right now in healthcare IT before we start walking and then running.
Sure, and that makes a lot of sense. Do we have still time to go to the panelists, or did you want to open up the floor to questions from the audience?
We still have some time for the panelists if you guys want to continue your conversation.
Terrific.
Okay. So I'd like to add some thoughts about the same topic. So what I think that regarding the security, we have not seen the worst. And the worst we are going to see sooner or later. So right now, I'm thinking that we are going toward the journey to getting mature and able to fight with that the worst. So we have seen that WannaCry and others, that these are, I still say that these are the small incidents, which is giving us a more visibility, and which helps that the board or other people to understand the value of the information security. One thing I like to add here that in the organizations that we are going to get hacked. Means we need to have a kind of a perception that yes, we are going to get hacked. What we need to do in that situation? It is not the incident, it is almost a definite. Because thinking about that kind of vision is because what we are trying to do the security here, the same amount of the security tools and all these are available to all these hackers because of the cloud and the organization crime. I've been in the public speeches in various parts of the world, like India, China, or Russia. So what happens? What I've seen that we blame them and they blame us, and but the organization which work for they do that hacking. It is not really they say we are doing the hacking. They say we have been hired by the other organizations. We provided that the right kind of the tool, technologies, and all these to our people. And what these people are doing, they are doing their legitimate job. They don't know they are hacking. They don't know they are doing something wrong, and the real decisions making at a different level. So that's what saying that means. I would say that we are definitely going mature compared to like 5 years or 10 years back, or even the 3 years back. We are getting better and better, but we need to be prepared to work when we feel that the organization is get hacked. So what we need to do, it means either the insurance is going to cover us, or the technology, or we should have a communication with the FBI or that regulators. So again, one of more thing I want to add that the regulations are still weak. They need to come up better, because one of the Tesla event I went, and what they did, they said we built the robot, and these robots are capable to build the new robots, as well as they have a capability to write their own codes. They have capability to correct their issues their own, and they can reproduce the new robots. So what we are trying to build, so kind of that type of the environment, we need to inbuild the security, we need to build the regulations around that, so which I'm not seeing right now from the policymakers or regulators. So that is, and that is something I'm looking forward in future to come more diligently and help that industry.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, I think.
Hey, Mark, can I just add
Yeah.
one point? I think Parveen touched upon a good point. The regulations are weak. I think when we look at the future, the volume or scale of attacks are coming, right? If I understand Parveen's points correctly, right, we haven't seen the worst, right? Doomsday may happen. We have seen what can happen with Stuxnet, right, or Ukrainian power grid, or life-impacting events, right? So far, what happens is that, yes, we do hear this bank is hacked, but eventually, what is the net impact to me, right? I have my money. Bank is on the hook to get me back my money, right? I'm not liable for it. So I hear the news, and I don't pay attention to it, right? Oh, it has become, the new norm of our life, because it is not life impacting. But what we know that there can be events which can be life impacting. Now, in order to address those kind of events and be prepared for future, technology, process, and people, right? Spreading the awareness in the people also requires the next level of thinking. Not having a strong regulation is basically sort of like promoting the idea of like penalizing someone, right? At the same time, maybe in future, there has to be more participation from government and other institutions as well to incentivize cybersecurity knowledge. Maybe I'm thinking a little bit of out of the curve here, but what I'm thinking is that, like the way, think about it, right? Road accidents, right? Safety events. Prior to publicly, having a campaign of don't drink and drive, right? And everywhere if you go, you see the ads or even the hoarding boards and everywhere, right? Drive sober and all. Without having those kind of a campaign, road accident levels were high, right? Those events are scientifically proven to be, those campaigns lowered the number of accidents, right? At least statistically. The similar thing, right? What we have to do is that maybe in future, we have to incentivize the cyber education. In colleges, for example, I'm doing maybe data science, right? But if I take a particular awareness course which is available on cyber, maybe I get some extra credit, right? This way, people will be more interested, not getting scared that, okay, I cannot do this because, the cops will be after me, I'm doing something wrong. Rather, I should be more interested to learn and spread the awareness. And think about it. If even the next level, I'm just giving some idea, right, which might not be implementable. Say you take a defensive driving course, you get some discount in your insurance. Why not you take some cyber, awareness and increasing the knowledge base of the general population, right? Basically, you put a cyber warrior in every household. And if you do that, what is the advantage? Maybe you get from some tax credit, right, when you are filing your property taxes or something, right? So this way, maybe government can also come and, help and join the fight against bad cyber actors. We're incentivizing cyber education and cyber awareness and spreading the knowledge beyond corporate citizens. Even in most of the cases, like we know that small household, senior citizens, they are not aware, and they are mostly the candidates of those, phishing attempts, or account takeover, or getting access to their home computer or even routers, eventually building a big botnet. But if you can spread the knowledge and put a cyber warrior in every household, you are making the life difficult for bad actors. Technology alone can help them, right? So that's something I'm just thinking about. Government and public and private, there has to be a collaboration to spread the awareness of cybersecurity through some incentivizing program. Maybe that will be needed in future.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought, Partha. That's, just as insurance companies incentivize drivers now to drive well, right?
Yeah.
There's definitely, I think we can hope and pray that government will get their heads around this sooner, but in the meanwhile, it's sort of up to us, right? And so with that, do you guys do we want to go to Q&A, or do we still have a little bit of time? Because I have another question if we do.
We have 5 minutes left.
Terrific. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So, okay, so from we've talked a little bit about it. How important is it to you guys, the method of assumed breach, right? Which is where, which I think you already know, which is where you understand to what Parveen was talking to and what Partha was talking to and what Jason weighed in on, was the idea of making sure that an attack is going to happen. And so how are you going to be best prepared for that? So what sort of processes do you guys go through to make sure that your sort of downstream processes from an attack are as mature as they can be? So I'm going to throw you under the bus, Partha.
Me? Okay. So I think both, right? Proactive and reactive approach. Proactive is planning. Basically, we create our first thing is that we start with assessing our environment, our control strength, threat vectors, right? And identify red, green, or yellow items in our overall landscape where we are strong, where we are weak, and where we probably have no coverage or gap. So we work on adding those capabilities or having those compensating controls. And at the same time, while we are adding those compensating controls, there is always a window of opportunity, right? The larger the organization, time to market, time to implement, right? Something is sometime weeks or even months. Now, during that time period, we need to have some backup plan if something happens. How do we detect? How do we respond? And how do we recover, like the NIST model? So we create all those plans, which is like a proactive planning to make sure, if there is an incident happen, we are ready. But at the same time, there has to be some reactive readiness as well. Something always happens during an incident cycle where it does not follow a script, right? We can be ready with our script, but when the attackers are coming, they don't know our script, and at times they are out of our script. So what we do during those times, right? Usually during times where things are out of script, what we need is that a prompt action from the individuals and faster decisioning, right? So we have all the analysts, right? They will review the incident and eventually come to a conclusion, right? But at the same time, whether to take an action to stop that conclusion or not, a lot of time depends on risk-taking ability of the organization, right? It might require that, okay, you implement some change that might cause a temporary outage to, say, a trading application, or maybe something else, or maybe some critical, information or application where you may need to get approvals several levels above you, right? If the organization does not remove the red tapes and have the process agility where you can react on things as quickly as possible when things go beyond your script, then you are not going to be able to handle that situation, right? So in order to get ready for incidents, we also have to do this kind of an exercise where it's often, like as a technologist, I'm a technical guy as well. I started my career as an engineer, setting up the ISP backbones, right? And routers and switches and all. But at the same time, most of the time, technology workforce often overlooks these areas. And those are very obvious. When you are in the incident, then you struggle. Then you realize, okay, we didn't think about it. Our core processes and are not equipping us to handle those situations, right? And we are eventually dealing with like a decision paralysis. Can we do this? If we do this, who's going to approve it? Who's going to sign off on it? There is a certain amount of risk involved. Who can make the decision, right? This is like a true leadership needed, because when you are a great leader when you can make the right decision for the organization where you don't have all the data. If you have all the data and all the outcomes are very clear, you don't need any person can do the leadership there, right? There is no special skill needed. The leaders who are considered to be special or great leaders makes those decisions under ambiguity where they don't have the right amount of data, but makes the right call, right? So having those leadership structure ready for sort of a disaster scenario, an out of the norm incident scenario, it's very much needed. At the same time, doing those fire drills and proactively preparing the organization as much as possible is also highly needed. So I said a lot of things, but to summarize, yes, there has to be a technical maturity, people level maturity, process level maturity, and my stress will be beyond the technology and people, because all of a sudden you cannot forklift like 100 people or 500 people in the organization, replace with additional 500 or add additional 200, right? Clearly, there are limitations. Technology level, yes, we identify these are the gaps. We will uplift our capability, but it takes time. But during that time, what we can do is that at least we can, change the processes, make sure the process is agile and we have the right response and leadership and decision-making ability so that we remove the red tapes when something goes beyond the script and we can take a prompt action on it.
Terrific.
Does that make sense,
you.
Mark? Oh, okay.
Yes, it does. That's great. Parveen or Jason, did you want to weigh in? We have to start with the audience questions. So if you'd like to bow out, we can get to our audience questions. Go ahead.
This is Jason, and it's just a quick point, at least from a healthcare perspective. The kind of rose-colored glasses days of it won't happen to me are long gone. There's at least 2 or 3 stories every day in kind of some of the healthcare outlets about somebody having a breach or someone having a security incident. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And security leaders in healthcare IT need to prepare as such.
Great. Thanks, Jason. So we have a couple of questions. So let me throw this to the panel. What are some of the negatives and positives of using public versus a private cloud?
I can probably, Mark, I mean, if you want, I can probably go on that. And
Please jump in.
Sure. So the private cloud, right? I mean, obviously, the positive thing is that you have more control over something. And at the same time, right, usually it is said that the cost is higher because you are building your own, right, where you are paying it, right? You are not having a co-tenant kind of a thing. At the same time, I can tell you, like most of the organizations I have worked so far, people usually jump into a public cloud infrastructure on year 1. And I haven't seen a true, right, finance level analysis like an IRR and a lot of other finance metrics to show how over the course of 5 years, public cloud is still profitable. At many cases, I have seen people jumping into public cloud next year, seeing the bill a lot, and then trying to, remove some of the services because the bill is coming higher. But these are reality. But on paper or in theory, with private cloud, you have better security. I mean, I should not call it better security. You have a better control over the environment. You can install things at your will, and you can go up to the bottom of the stack and do whatever you want. Whereas in public cloud, you will not be given access beyond a certain level because the service providers will maintain it, and there you are co-tenant. And eventually, from a cost perspective, private cloud should be more expensive than public cloud, but again, at the cost of control, right? So if you have to weigh in cost versus control versus security versus agility in implementation, how quickly you can go to market, you have to basically balance out. And the choice also depends on the size of the organization's risk appetite, budget, and the organizational culture as well, right? So combining all those factors, public cloud can be great for some organization, might not be so great for many others. And private cloud could be great for many, even large Wall Street organizations. Recently came in news that they are not in public cloud, and those companies were never been in the news for hack, right? I'm not naming the company. Many of us know it. But again, it depends on the organization and the overall things. But that's my views purely on the private and versus public decision.
Thank you, Partha. Jason or Parveen?
For healthcare, I mean, the biggest consideration for us is HIPAA. So as we're looking at cloud solutions, one of the factors that our CISO looks at is asking where the data will ultimately be stored. Is it going to leave our geographic area? Will it leave the country? Where are some of the other points that this data could be accessed that are outside of our control? And we spend a lot of time when we're evaluating cloud solutions to take a look at that information, just particularly if any of the PHI would potentially go out to the cloud.
Sure.
So,
go ahead.
Yeah, so it is depend upon that the cloud means either it is a public cloud or either the private cloud. It is being means again there is a different layers. The IaaS means infrastructure is being laid out, and then top of that the application and others. So it is the same. So the key is from where you are accessing, what type of security you are setting up, what type of the environment you are trying to build. So that is more important. What is the data you want to put it there? So if it is like public data you want to use, means the data which is readily available or it isn't hard, means it is good to use on the cloud, because it is most of the time it is cheaper than the in-house network. But if there is a data which is having the lot of regulatories, and you have the money to build your own private cloud, or you can utilize that hybrid clouds. So this is more, I believe that the decision should be made based on the risk basis. What is the risk is going to be involved with that information? So every organization or every person, I would say that they need to do their due diligence, they need to do their homework, and based on that, decision has to be taken where they want to keep the data, and what is his organization or the data-related business functions requirements are, and having a decision with that risk-based decision that is going to be helped in these organizations. So there is like a couple of support is available, like these public clouds. They are supporting you that what type of the data should be come there. There is a lot of advisories that there. Cloud Security Alliance is there, NIST is there, and many more. Even the regulatory bodies are there. They are supporting you. You can take the guidance from them, and that would really helpful to take the right decisions.
Great. Thank you, Parveen. Okay, we have another question. As technology is evolving, what are some of the best practices for updating and maintaining an efficient public cloud? And I'll jump in here while the other guys think about that, because that's a loaded one, right? So from a guiding principle perspective, we break it up into about 8 different areas or so. I might do 7, so you can laugh at me afterwards. But one of the main ones is to encrypt everything from a data protection perspective. You can do different levels of encryption on the cloud, right? So the best practice is to use the native encryption that exists on the cloud for things that don't mean a lot to you, like your public data. And then for things that mean a lot to you, you can utilize a bring your own key scenario, right? So depending on the type of data, encrypt everything. From another one about everything is log everything. It's all about visibility on the cloud, so you need to get as much of it as possible. The other everything is to tag everything, because if you're logging everything and you don't have it properly tagged, you're not going to know what you're looking at. So it's important to tag everything as well, right? So that thing that we were talking about before, assume breach, it's a super important mentality to bring to the cloud as a best practice, which means make sure that your downstream processes are as mature as they possibly can be. Utilize another one is utilize continuous compliance where you can, right? So make sure that you know what's going on in your accounts, right? So there are native tools you can use, and there are third-party tools you can use, right? The other part of native is, from a best practice perspective, is use what's there, right? They went through a lot of effort to create some pretty robust stuff in the cloud. Make use of it. Otherwise, you'll be overlaying a network on top of a network, and that's never a good thing. So try to use as much cloud native capability as possible. And I know I'm missing a couple here, but this is off the top of my head. And federate into the organization, right? Do not start separate identity stores on the cloud, because that's going to get you into trouble, because it's one more identity store to manage, and your identity people will hate you for the rest of your life if you do that. It also makes attestation and certification difficult. So the last one, which we talked about a little bit before, is leave your bad habits on-prem. So if you have stuff that you do that you can get by with on-prem, don't bring it to the cloud or it'll be a hot mess before you know it. So those are the some of the best practices for the public cloud, and I will let our panelists continue on with that. Who would like to jump in?
So, Mark, I mean, first of all, right, I will take probably 2 minutes. Great listing. I mean, all the points you touched upon, these are very pertinent when we move into cloud. I actually, there is an upcoming publication in one of the cyber magazines in March where I talk about something called like a composite cyber metrics, which is nothing but combining your kill chain and NIST in a 2D view along with inside a threat, right? For example, if you can think about a 5x4 table where on your all the rows could be your kill chain vectors, right, or phases. It can be like reconnaissance, it can be like payload delivery, then your foothold establishment, right, including command and control, objective establishment, and the fifth one in the row of the table can be insider threat and human error, right? And on the column side of the table, you can think about like detect, protect, respond, and recover. Now, at the intersection of your X and Y coordinates, right, you eventually list out the controls you have today, either being provided native by the cloud provider or what you are adding as from external sources, and then assess the strength of these controls on 3 parameters, right? Awareness, agility, and advanced controls, right? Is it technically strong, right? Do you have process-wise agility to enact on some controls, right? And do you have the users doing the right thing and aware of the right thing? So combining all those factors, you will get a 5x4 table, which is like a 20 eventually rating, which gives the composite metrics of where your strength and where your weakness, right, in cloud. And then you have to cover all those aspects, whatever you mentioned, to eventually build a day one control framework and also a roadmap for your target state, right? So in short, the question is really loaded. There is no one single answer. There are, like, as you said, like 8 broader categories. And in my mind, like 20 different sections in a 5x4 matrix where people have to focus on and come up with a day one as well as day 2 and future state control to keep data secure in cloud.
I'd like to add one more thing
Thank
here.
you.
Okay. Just for a minute.
Thank you to Mark, our panelists, for doing such a great job. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for today. I want to thank everyone for joining us today for this fantastic virtual event. Thank you again, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.